Hi, I'm Jon Street. I'm the managing editor here at campusreform.org. I have Cliff Maloney. He's the president of Young Americans for Liberty. Cliff, thanks so much for joining us here in studio. It's a pleasure to have you here.
John, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts as we head into the fall semester. I know you guys have recently relocated your office down to Texas. We've had several stories out of Texas lately, one of which has been the University of Texas Austin stories where incoming conservative students who are choosing to join conservative groups on campus, they've been threatened by the group called the Autonomous Student Network with doxing if they choose to join a conservative group, one of which could be your organization. So I was just looking for your response to students looking to join YAL, and if they might be a little hesitant to join, like what would be your message to those students?
It's interesting right now because I look at college campuses, and when we're out there preparing for the fall semester, everything is so emotional. And you can blame whoever you want to blame, but the reality is we're an organization, we've got libertarian and conservative students that are excited about the principles of the Constitution. We're trying to engage people, and it really is a shame. It's a shame that you have the left and a lot of these authoritative campus bureaucrats, these administrators who they want to dictate what can and what cannot be said on college campuses, whether it's organizing as a group, whether it's speaking by bringing in, people that have different ideas than what they're getting in the classroom, or whether it's, trying to decide, obviously on the curriculum side, we're struggling to get our message out. So what I tell a lot of the students that come to us or to our current leaders that are trying to recruit new people is you got to be firm. You've got to have courage. And the nice thing about the principles of liberty and the principles of freedom is we're willing to defend our ideas. We don't need an advantage. I tell people all the time, when we fight some of these free speech, let's just say, disagreements we have with how bureaucrats are handling things, I'm never looking for an advantage for libertarians or conservatives. We don't need an advantage. We just need a level playing field. Because if it's an even playing field where we can engage students and we can talk to them about the ideas we believe in, people tend to come towards freedom. They believe in self-responsibility, not reliance on government. So I'm always trying to push a message of courage, and I'm trying to push a message of principle. And when you stand up for what you believe in, there is so much room to reach people and really to get in the hearts and minds of these young Americans with these ideas. And you've got to continue to push because the campus bureaucrats, they're never going to roll over. They're never going to make it easy. And so I'm excited to see the students out there to have the courage to continue to deliver and recruit students.
We've seen in some recent polls that we've reported on at Campus Reform that college students increasingly are in favor of socialism, or at least socialist policies, those which Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, those sorts of policies that those candidates are putting forward. So just from what you're seeing on the ground with your network of students and leaders, how do you, is it really as these polls seem to make it out to be that all these students are just socialists, or is there more of a story here?
The world's not ending, as I like to put it. Should we be worried that so many students are excited about that word socialism? Yes. I want to say that. I want to be very clear. I'll tell everybody at home, we should be worried that people are looking at the word socialism in a positive light. But what gives me hope is when you do break it down issue by issue. Yes, sometimes if you say, raise taxes on the rich, a lot of young people are going to support that. But when you really dive into each issue, when it comes to the government spying on us, do they believe in the Fourth Amendment? Yeah, most people don't want the government reading their emails, reading their texts. Whether Obama's in office or Trump, that's a good thing. Most young people do believe in the right to defend yourself as a law-abiding citizen. Most young people, the trends are not great on this, do believe that you should have a right to speak freely and the government should not decide who can and who cannot speak. Most young people don't think the government should take 25 cents of every dollar that you make, especially if you're making minimum wage. All of these I look at as hope that the gut instinct of young Americans is still with us. It's still with freedom over socialism. And so I think that the word socialism and the messengers of socialism, have done a very good job at kind of hiding or creating this facade that socialism is sexy and that it's this wonderful utopia. We know what socialism is. It's full government control. And when you give government the control to run our lives, to dictate what equality looks like, not equality of opportunity like we get in free markets, but equality of outcome under the socialism model, that requires government force. Young people don't want to rely on government. They have that gut instinct of wanting to rely on freedom. That's what gives me hope, and that's what makes me push back on this idea that socialism's taking over.
So when you talk about most, you would say so many of these college students, they really side on, with you guys on the side of liberty rather than on socialism, and freedom rather than socialism, and forced government intervention. What are you guys doing on a national level, or even just regionally, to really get those ideas out there to say that this is what freedom looks like and this is what socialist policies look like?
So I think there are two opportunities on a college campus to reach students with a message, whatever that message might be. You have the classroom experience, and then you have the on-campus experience. Now, the classroom experience, the left and big government, news shock to everybody here, they've got a stranglehold on the curriculum and what's being taught in the classroom. But where they don't is that on-campus experience. That is where we have an opportunity to engage students. So at Young Americans for Liberty, we really focus on doing campus activism. Think of it as street theater, right? The ability to go out there, grab the attention of a student and get them to think. And we truly believe this. I would say about 90% of students, this is not a shot at them, but most people are apathetic. They're focused on their degree, they want to make ends meet, they're having a beer at night, they're trying to find a girlfriend or boyfriend. Life goes on. And we can't blame folks that aren't politically engaged. But those are the individuals, not the 5% of students that would outwardly call themselves socialist. We want to focus on the 90% that are interested, but they might not be showing that interest, to get them to start asking questions. And when we do campus activism, we've done over 3,500 campus recruitment events just over the past calendar year. That's the way to engage people. And you're not trying to throw, Atlas Shrugged at them or Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt and trying to get them to read it on the spot. What you're trying to do is to get them to participate in a free speech ball or participate in an event where we're advocating for the right to self-defense or the Fourth Amendment. And when you do that, you get them to start processing these things and think about, what is the role of government? And John, I'll tell you, if students can answer that question, or at least ask the question, what is the role of government? Because that's never the question. What's presented to them as the solution in the classroom is always government. You need a government bureaucracy, a committee, or some sort of government bill to solve all of our problems. When we do street theater, when we do campus activism, what we're saying is there are different answers. The actual solution, or what the proper role of government is, might not be what we've always thought it is. We, the people, through free markets, through individual liberty, we can solve all of these problems much better than the government. That's what we try to do, and that's how we try to tap into students on campus, by doing those activism and recruitment events.
So you touched on free speech a little bit there. One of the trends you would say that I think we've seen a lot at Campus Reform and just covering stories across the country has been one of the ways in which students are telling us that they believe that campuses are trying to squelch their right to free speech is through denying them a registered student organization status. They cut off these resources as a result of that, and maybe they'll have a valid reason. Sometimes maybe not so much of a valid reason. So what would you tell? What advice would you give to those students who are trying to form an organization on campus and are just trying to go through this bureaucratic rigmarole of just trying to figure out what is what and what the problem is, and trying to get an organization approved just like any other student organization on campus?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a systemic issue we found throughout the country. I think people try to downplay it sometimes, but when it's happening at the volume it's happening, there are definitely forces pushing back on students who want to advocate for freedom. So if you're trying to start a Young Americans for Liberty chapter, obviously we have resources and a national staff that will back you up. The Leadership Institute is a partner we work with that is able to give resources on the ground as well. And a lot of the organizations have a national presence that you can reach out to, because we've dealt with these problems. We've had to face the college bureaucrats and administrators that are trying to shut our students down. And what I'll tell you is, I think this systemic issue, it's been going on for probably 3 to 4 years now, where they'll shut conservative and libertarian-minded speakers down. Like you said, they won't let you register. And the reason that's so important to get registered as a student organization is all of the resources. To not only pay for a speaker to have funds, but to even get a room for a meeting, or to get an auditorium for a speaker. A lot of schools have red tape, and you have to be registered to do that. So at YAL, we've actually launched a campaign that we call the National Fight for Free Speech campaign. And what it does is it finds these instances that happen on campuses where they're trying to shut us down, or they're denying our students the right to petition or to recruit on campus, and we go after them. To put it lightly, we first will send a threatening letter. We partner with groups like Alliance Defending Freedom and FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights in Ed, and we work with these great free speech, nonpartisan groups to defend our students, and we'll send a strongly worded letter to the school to say, hey, listen, you're trampling our right to free speech, and you can't do this. And then it escalates from there. And I'm happy to say we've won 54 of those instances where we've gone in and we have reformed the actual policy on campus so that no longer can a campus bureaucrat with a liberal bias, or heck, any bias, they now cannot let their bias get in the way. Students have the ability to speak freely. They can bring speakers they want. They can get recognized and get access to the funds. And at YAL, that is something we take very seriously. Let's go after the root of the problem, which are these codes and the policies that the bureaucrats hide behind to shut down speakers and groups they disagree with.
More to the topic of free speech, I just want to get your thoughts on, as you're well aware, I saw you at CPAC this year. The president there announced that he was going to be signing an executive order on campus free speech. Have you seen any improvements as a result of that executive order? What would be your message to the president in terms of the executive order itself that he's already signed, or what further action may or may not be needed?
So first I'll say this, as a diehard liberty lover, I'm always hesitant on executive orders. But I want to applaud the president, because what he did through that executive order, aside from everything else, is he put a spotlight on this issue. And it's an issue that YAL and all of our partner organizations, we have been screaming about, which is, look, we have a systemic problem here where certain viewpoints are getting shut down. And so the executive order, to me, that part of the executive order was fantastic. It started a national discussion. Universities are now more hesitant about being biased and about shutting down speakers that, quite frankly, they disagree with. And so that, to me, has been fantastic, and I would say we've seen a change. When we send our threatening letters, people are much quicker to respond. When we file the actual lawsuit, we're getting offered settlements much quicker. Settlements, the only time we'd ever take them is if they have a full revamp of the actual policy, so we get a win out of it, and it benefits our students. The parts of the executive order that dealt with, it was combined with some student loans, and there were some things about, linking funding. I'm not here to advocate for that. But what I am extremely grateful for is that the president put 3 Young Americans for Liberty members behind him when he signed this, and really made sure that the national conversation around free speech was not only heard, but that it is something that he has said, he believes that all viewpoints should be heard on campus. And at taxpayer-funded universities, I do believe the First Amendment must be upheld, and I'm glad that he's pushing that.
When you bring up the settlements that you guys are pursuing with these universities with the policy changes, it seems like we've seen time and time again where universities have been challenged on cases, and eventually it just results in a settlement, which means it never advances in the court system, which means that courts never actually say anything on whether you can do this, you can't do this. It's just settled and just kind of goes away. Is there a need for a more, systemic and comprehensive evaluation by the courts on this topic?
It's a tough question, because, and I think it's a fair question. I mean, we've looked at certain cases. We take the advice, when we work with ADF or FIRE, they're the best in the business when it comes to free speech attorneys. What we have done is we are always looking to hit that objective of revamping the campus free speech code on that specific campus. So I'll give you an example. UC Berkeley. Everybody talks about Berkeley shutting down speakers, doing all those things. What they did to us was our group was organizing on campus for roughly a year. They wouldn't recognize them. They kept kind of dodging us. Well, finally they put in writing, which was a mistake on their part, that we were too similar to other organizations. Right, and I mean, it's like, come on, there's like 50 groups that you could argue are progressive, leftist, socialist, democratic type groups, and there's a handful of liberty type conservative groups. It's just not even close. But we were able to document that, and we were able to take them to court, and one of the reasons we settled was because they agreed to change the entire UC system so that the way to get recognized as a student organization was no longer in the hands of a bureaucrat. There was, an arbitrary, if you have 10 members, you're set, right? Instead of the school has to deem that, there's no other similar groups. Right. So if you can remove barriers like that, we want to do that. But I think that your question is a fair point in that there's probably going to come a time where we want this to go to the Supreme Court. We want this to go to a level where the government is kind of signaling to these folks, hey, you need to do this. But it's difficult as somebody who believes in decentralization. It's one of those issues where I'm almost like, we have a First Amendment. Sure. So it's almost like we're using the court system to defend what already is the law of the land, which is the First Amendment. So that would be my one, playing devil's advocate on whether we needed to go to the, superior courts in the states or the Supreme Court. I would say we already have law of the land. The schools are just not upholding it, so we need to fight back using that law.
I just want to wrap up here by asking you, as we head into the fall semester, students are heading back to school this week, next week, on into next month. What is on your radar at Young Americans for Liberty, and what are you guys looking to some of your big events, just general things that you guys are looking forward to this semester or this school year?
Yeah, so I'm always looking to tap into energy for the principles of liberty, the things that we're trying to push. I'll tell you, as an organization, what we are laser focused on is, first, we build this youth army. We try to find students on campus that are eager, that are principled, that are energetic, and that they want to go out and actually make a difference. And through our C4, what we're able to do is we have a program called Operation Win at the Door. And so we're trying to take all these students from college campuses across America and deploy them for state legislative races where we endorse candidates that are aligned with us. And so we do door-knocking deployments. So right now I'm laser focused on that. I mean, 2020 is going to be a huge year. But 2019 in the fall, we've got 4 states that have off-year state legislative elections. So we're focused on those. We expect to do between 10 and 20 races across the country in those 4 states. But I'm really, really interested to see how this socialism, AOC type message that we're seeing from Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, the Democratic debates, I think people pay attention to presidential politics. So I think that's sparking a lot of interest on campus. And where there's interest, Young Americans for Liberty, we want to insert ourselves to present the ideas of the Constitution, the ideas of limited government, lower taxes, less regulation. And so I think that the Democrat debates, libertarian and conservative groups should use that as an opportunity because there's an audience. Let's insert ourselves, let's present a message, and let's win back our generation, because I think there's got to be some optimism. You've got a time in American history where we have the lowest unemployment rate for all Americans, the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans ever, based on the records. Just so much opportunity. We're cutting regulation. I think things are going so well. We need to present that. Let's not let the socialists come in and act like this is all doom and gloom. It's an opportunity for us to be positive, but make sure that we own the mantle fighting back against socialism with actual free market capitalism, not the cronyism. So that's my challenge to everybody. It's our challenge to our activists as we head into the fall, is let's be principled, but let's tap into that energy and let's excite people. And as we like to say at YL, let's make liberty win.
All right. Well, we'll end on that note. Good luck on all your endeavors this semester and into the school year. And thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm Captain Phillips with Campus Reform. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to join our team, we're always looking for new investigators, correspondents, and writers, so you can click right here to learn more about that. If you want to donate to help us make more videos like the one you just saw, go ahead and click right here. And if you want to subscribe to be the first person to see all of our new content right when it comes out, click that button right down there. You gotta click one of them. I keep track of who clicks and who doesn't, so I will know. So go ahead and click one of them. Thanks.